Good morning, I'm Chris Ford and I'm standing in Harringay ward as a council candidate for the Liberal Democrats. A little bit about myself. Well, I lived in Harringay my whole life. I studied politics with East European Studies at university, and I've since had jobs with both the BBC and as a researcher and writer for a political think tank, where I continue to write on a freelance basis. At the moment I work 3 days a week for a small accountancy firm, and I volunteer 3 days a week with my local Liberal Democrats. I also volunteer with the local community group FASCA, where I help give guitar lessons to a group of 15 to 20 children between the ages of about 7 and 13, which is great fun, and I also give guitar lessons independently. In terms of why I'm running for council in Harringay ward, well, several reasons really. I suppose the first one has to be I wouldn't be running for council if I didn't think I'd be an excellent councillor. I'm very determined, I'm hard-working, I'm organised, but I'm also very down-to-earth. I'd like to be viewed as a normal person, not just a politician or a face of a political party. I think my background in political study gives me a good grounding and understanding of national and local political issues and processes. But this has also always made me very sceptical about party politics in general. And I once swore that I would never ever become a member of a political party. But that said, the reason I'm running with the Lib Dems in Harringay is because I believe they offer us the best chance for positive change in the borough and in the ward. And also, in terms of myself, Karen and David, I think we all bring very different skills and qualities to the table. I think we complement each other very well, and I think altogether we make up a very good team.
That's great, thanks for that introduction, Chris. Getting to questions now, can you tell me, do you have a vision of Harringay neighbourhood and what you'd like to see here in the next 5 to 10 years? And could you tell us what one thing would do more than any other to get us there, and what you'll do to make sure it's achieved?
Okay, absolutely. I think, well, the obvious thing is that I want to make sure Harringay ward is a better place and a nicer place to live for everybody, myself included. In terms of vision, well, look, I mean, I'd like to see a Harringay where we don't have vans and trucks and perpetual traffic rolling up and down our streets and shaking the foundation of our houses day in, day out. A Harringay ward where you can walk out your front door and you aren't confronted with unwanted bits of furniture and building waste littering our streets and our front gardens. A Harringay ward where our family homes aren't torn up into multiple units and irresponsible landlords are allowed to just get away with it. But also a Harringay ward where there's a greater sense of community and more people know each other, people feel involved in local decision making, and people have genuine access to their local representatives. Now, in terms of the one thing, which I think I would personally do to make sure all these things are achieved, I think the obvious thing is maintaining the correct attitude at all times. You know, you've got to remember what being an elected representative actually means. And that doesn't mean sailing off with your big ideas and you know, not talking to your local residents. This means working for residents, but also working with residents and making sure that participation is as high as possible, making yourself accessible and easy to get hold of, and actually involving the people who have elected you and finding out what they want you to do and getting on and dealing with it.
Great, thanks for that, Chris. Anything else that you're going to be working to change in Harringay, and anything you want to say about what you're going to be doing to achieve it?
Well, I mean, there are several other issues which over the longer term we obviously want to look at. I think one of them is the very transient population we have in this ward. You know, we would like people to move to Harringay, to enjoy living in Harringay and actually want to stay in Harringay. And I think there are several problems involved with this, and I think one of them is our secondary schools in our borough. And hopefully Councillor Karen Alexander will embellish a little bit on this because she has children at that age going to secondary school. But I think a lot of families are very happy to put their children through primary school here, but then when they look at the possibilities of secondary schools, they're really quite turned off and they look to move elsewhere. So I think you know, we've really got to work with parents in that position, with school governors, teachers, head teachers, and find out what the problems are and how we can solve them. I think a second issue is well, betting shops, I suppose, is a key issue. I mean, it's very difficult because it's national legislation, which means the council is essentially hamstrung. But all I can say is that we will continue to lobby for a change in the national law and be as vocally opposed to any new propositions to open new establishments in the area as we possibly can. It's not a party political issue. You know, we will work with anybody who's willing to work with us, be it David Lammy or anyone else. So yeah, that's obviously a key issue on a lot of people's minds. Another thing, well, green initiatives. I'm very much for a more sustainable Harringay, a greener Harringay. Myself, I grow vegetables in my garden, I cycle, I recycle as much as I can, and I'd like to encourage more people to do this. You know, Harringay has won awards with its recycling, which, you know, credit where credit's due, that's a fantastic thing. But it doesn't mean we can't encourage even more people to be doing the same thing. So yeah, I'd like to see people recycling more. I'd like to see people making the most of their gardens and encouraging people onto bikes.
Great, thanks for that, Chris. You mentioned just now about participation. You felt it important to get
Absolutely,
people participating.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you're going to do to stay in touch with what local residents want?
Well, I mean, I think communication is one of the most essential elements of a councillor's job. I think, you know, to be a truly accountable councillor, you have to be a truly accessible councillor. And I think there are various ways we can do this. First and foremost, we're in the process of setting up a new website. It's something that's been raised already on Harringay Online, and it's difficult to find out what the Lib Dems locally are about. Well, that's something we're working on. So expect to see something up in the next 2 weeks or so, which we would obviously use to communicate what we're doing, but also local news. Also, you know, links and contact details for things which residents will find useful, such as your local enforcement team if you need to report a problem, and things that I would want to see on a politician's website as a resident. But also local newsletters, again, same sort of information. Of course, not everybody has access to the internet. Knocking on people's doors, as we have been, talking to residents, getting people involved and talking to us. You know, I would always welcome suggestions, criticisms, comments as a councillor, and I want to make myself as available as possible. One other thing I would say in this section is of course area assemblies. And this is something which a lot of people are talking about, and we as Lib Dems are very, very keen to reform. They have to be made more participatory, and I think there are 2 ways we do this. The first is communication. People need to know when they are, where they are, and how to get issues on the agenda. And the other issue is the structure of the assemblies themselves. You know, they have to be more participatory. They can't just be, you know, political confrontation or party politics. This is a forum for residents to talk about their concerns, but also challenge their own representatives. So that's one thing we're going to work towards.
Great. And finally, Chris, anything else you'd like to add that you haven't had a chance to say so far?
Well, I could add all sorts of things. Well, without sounding cliched, I would say this. If you're unhappy with your council, anything about your council over the last couple of years, please don't use that as an excuse to sit at home on May the 6th. Please come out and vote all 3 Lib Dem, because it's a very close election. Your vote will count, and we stand a huge chance of kicking that Labour administration out.
Thank you, Chris.